close it was. Here we are. I'm Paul John Dykes. This is a Celtic State of Mind, and I'm getting a dial in all the way from the Skylark. It's Lawrence Conley. Happy Christmas, first and foremost, Lawrence. How did you enjoy your day yesterday, big fella?
Oh, it was great, mate. Gave everyone their presents that arrived in time. So happy days. We're still top of the league, despite, what's it, day 14 in the meltdown or something? I've lost where we are in meltdown terms. But it's just getting funnier and funnier, but
more
still top
and
of the league.
More ridiculous.
Yeah. Check the website. The League Cup's still at Celtic Park. It's great fun.
It is great fun. Celtic forming part of a full calendar on this Boxing Day 2024. We face Motherwell at home, of course, Lawrence. You and I are not, unfortunately, at the game. But 2025 might allow Acsom to be at far more of these matches in attendance, yet still covering the game on the old live content. Hearts and Hibs were playing earlier today. Hibs beat them 2-1. I remember after the game where they were trying to unnerve young Arnie Engels coming to this country to try and further his football career. I'd tell him, big pressure, 11 million, aye, right, and all this kind of stuff. And I said afterwards, because I do have quite a lot of jambos within my area, Lawrence, my neighbours are generally all jambos. And I said, well, I hope that you enjoy your relegation fight for the rest of the season. That went down like a fat kid on a seesaw on the old social media. But here we are. Let's have a look at the table. Oh, Hearts are actually climbed. They've climbed up to 10th in the table above Ross County, a point below them, and St Johnstone, who are 2 points below Hearts. Hibs are on something of a run, and they've climbed right up to the 7th place. But Celtic today, we face 4th placed Motherwell, Lawrence, at home. And of course, there are other games taking place. Dundee, Ross County, Kilmarnock against Aberdeen, St Johnstone versus Dundee United, and then St Mirren will play Rangers tonight at 5:45. We've seen the team. The team has been revealed, and I'm pretty sure everybody in the comment section has seen it as well. We were concerned earlier on, Lawrence, around the leaks that had been happening. How close to the starting 11 was the leaked team?
It's pretty close today, but it's normally bang on. So I don't know what's happening, who in the dressing room is leaking. I'm sure Brendan's not going to be happy, but it seems to have returned this season with 4 or 5 hours to kick off. The teams get passed about WhatsApp. Well, you've got to wonder, you guess it's not somebody that's playing. They've got to be in and around the squad or in and around the first team squad. Whether it's a player or a member of staff, I don't know, but you wouldn't think it's somebody that's playing. So, yeah, it needs to stop, doesn't it?
Totally. Yeah, without a doubt, mate. I mean, yeah, it's been called out by Brendan Rodgers at a press conference. You need to smoke it out. There's certain ways that you can do that, of course, and I'm pretty sure Brendan's on top of it. But today's team, let's just have a read through that and we'll have a discussion around the lineup. Lawrence, it's Kasper Schmeichel in goals, of course. Right back, Tony Ralston keeps the jersey. Left back is Greg Taylor. And then the two centre-halves are Cameron Carter-Vickers and Liam Scales retains the jersey. Moving into the midfield, I called this, I didn't call the team correct, but I called the midfield correct. It's McGregor, Engels and Bernardo. That's the midfield I wanted to start with. I was speaking to Liam just an hour ago, and that was the three that I would have started this game with. Up top, you've got Yang on the right, you've got Maeda on the left, you've got Ida through the middle, and then on the bench, Sinisalo, Trusty, Palma, Kyogo, Kuhn, Baye, McKeown, Hatate and Welsh. Earlier on, I had said that there was three returning to the Celtic squad. It turns out the three in question weren't who we thought they were, but we do have Carter-Vickers back in the squad. We do have Trusty, we do have Kuhn. We were expecting maybe AJ to come back in. From the start 11 and, of course, the bench, Lawrence, one name really does stand out for me, and that's Nicholas Kuhn. Obviously not fit enough to start the game today, but it's great to see him back on the bench. We weren't really sure how serious that knee injury was.
I don't know if it's not fit enough to start, because when Brendan spoke during the week, it'll be a couple of days, he'll be fine. And maybe it's with an eye on our next match. We're at home and he's thinking, if I can not use him and give him more rest, he'd be happier with that. So I think maybe that plays in it, but geez, Yang's getting enough chances, but he's not really doing much, is he? So hopefully at Celtic Park, bigger part, maybe help him. Be interested to see how the midfield lines up. I know we're talking on Tuesday. I would say maybe play Bernardo to 6 and push Callum a bit further forward. See if we maybe try that. Delighted to see Bernardo in. I think he brings a lot to the team. You know, he's a big boy as well. He's always got that physicality that Brendan speaks about. So, you know, him and Engels, they're both over 6 foot, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think it's time to bring Engels back in. Lawrence, I'm going to ask you this because growing up playing football like everybody else, not at any level, we spoke about things like a number 6, a number 8, a number 10, but we never actually said that was the position on the pitch. Everybody knew what a number 10 was. It was Maradona, right? And then in this day and age, it's Messi, and we know where they are in the park. But if you're looking at that midfield, do we have to be that rigid? Do we need to say that McGregor's a 6 and Bernardo's an 8? And do we have to do that? Because I think they're good enough footballers that in match, you know, if McGregor's on the run, Bernardo turns into a 6. You know, I think they can interchange.
I totally. I mean, you start 4-3-3, but it'll change throughout the game depending whether you've got the ball or not. So, you know, as much as we always start 4-3-3, we'll see Greg pushing further forward into midfield, for example. So, yeah, you know, the formation's fairly fluid, isn't it? Our midfielders can swap about, which is great. And I think, obviously, Ange liked that across the front line as well, the ability for people to swap in and out. And I think, you know, Brendan's continued that. Players been able to switch over. So it makes it harder for the other team to track. You know, of late, everybody's just been sitting on top of Callum, haven't they? Close Callum McGregor down.
Yeah.
And close Celtic down. And I just think, you know, if Bernardo starts off playing deeper, it makes the other team think, well, do we go to Bernardo and leave Callum a bit freer? Or if we just pop the ball over to Callum then we're on the attack. So we'll wait and see. I'm expecting to be fairly physical with Motherwell. Yeah. And maybe that's why he's went for the 2 big boys in midfield.
Good shout. It usually is.
Yeah.
It usually is, mate.
You know, that's what Carter Vickers is 6 foot. I think Scales, Bernardo and Engels over 6 foot. That's going to give us a good bit of attacking threat in their box, you'd think. And obviously you've got Ida who's over 6 foot as well. So maybe telling you where the ball's going to be going. You know,
well,
the ball's into the box.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good discussion point we had, actually. I'm trying to remember who it was that pointed it out. Was it Big John Hartson, actually, when we were talking about the physicality of some of the signings or lack of? And then we looked at this season's signings, Lawrence, and we were looking at Schmeichel, Trusty, Engels, Ida, and you're thinking, well, there's plenty of physicality there. I know that Austin Trusty's on the bench, but it was with a view to challenging, really, in Europe. It wasn't really a domestic issue, I think. You know, nobody... you can target the left-hand side of Celtic's defence, and domestic teams have done that. But Greg Taylor plays some great football domestically. I think it's when you get into that European, the world of European football, where you're looking at the physicality, and sometimes we seem to get bossed. But nobody's going to boss an Engels or an Ida or Trusty or Schmeichel, are they? I mean, surely that's the calibre and the physicality of player that we were lacking before.
I think it's different environments, isn't it? You know, technically our players are going to be the best players in Scotland. So we're maybe going to be outclassed technically in Europe. So we're trying to make up with that by being able to be physical with it, to have that extra bit of strength. Not needed so much in Scotland because technically we're better. We can just play the ball around them in most cases. So
yeah.
I think it's that step up in class and opposition. But maybe, you know, our players aren't necessarily better than their opposite number. So they're needing to bring a bit more of the physical aspect to the game to kind of try and close that gap. But Big John, he just won everything in the air, didn't he? Just
he knew a thing or two about physicality.
Aye, he was cracking, wasn't he? He's absolutely in Celtic his heart, hasn't he? You know, it's great. You go along and hear him speaking about his time at Celtic. But yeah, I'm expecting us to be a threat from corners and free kicks into the box today with that lineup. It's good to see the start. You know, Kyogo looked a wee bit out of sorts last game away at United, and that chance he missed, you were like, geez, you know, an informed Kyogo's in the back of the net. He just seemed to really didn't know what he was doing there, did he? He just seemed to fluff his lines.
The thing with that, Lawrence, and we'll go back to the Hibs game, which wasn't that long ago, and the finish and the nature of the finish by Kyogo that day was, I don't care who we were playing, it was world class. You know how he brought the ball in with the wee, kind of like the wee leg over, if you call it that, probably not. And then obviously the finish was outstanding. And you're looking at that and you're thinking, well, that was Hibs. That was just a couple of weeks ago. You know, what are we talking about? A loss of form? I just thought it was one of the games where the margins were so fine. I keep going back to the Aberdeen game at Pittodrie, where there's a moment of magic in that game, and it's Rio Atati, and we win the game 1-0. And against Dundee United, there was a couple of moments where you thought, that's your chance. And the margins are so tight. Kyogo doesn't have that moment of magic at that particular time. But I don't think he's particularly off form.
I think football's a low-scoring game, so that's what makes it so tight. It's why games are so affected by penalties or not, because it's such a low-scoring game. But there's sickness in the squad, so you don't know how fit Kyogo was there. I just thought, Kyogo, top of his game, he buries that. He didn't there. But, there's a few other people that didn't take their chances that fell to them. But, it's a point in the road to Tannadice. We're still unbeaten, still top of the league.
Yeah.
We march on. We're expecting 3 today. Set us up well for the weekend. Brendan's picked a team that they should be able to do it against Motherwell, shouldn't they? I actually thought Ida looked good when he came on against Dundee United. I think he's starting to get in his stride. He wasn't with us kind of a pre-season.
First touch, looking good, Lawrence.
Yeah. So hopefully he kind of grabs his chance today. Gives Brendan a bit of food for thought about going to Ibrox, who's going to start. Also gives the opposition a bit of food for thought. If Ida does well today, who are they going to be facing? Will be Ida or Kyogo. Maybe one day we'll see both of them, mate. Who knows? He might push Maid out wide right and Kyogo on the left and Ida through the middle.
There was a moment, Lawrence, where Ida actually played Kyogo in for the chance we've spoken about, right? It was a brilliant wee touch by Ida. And you think to yourself, had Kyogo scored that goal, it's maybe giving Brendan an insight into those two players playing together. Now, I don't mean you've got to completely change the formation and the shape of the side, but today's a classic example. You're starting the game today with me looking at the right-hand side. Kuhn's on the bench. We mentioned him first off because it's great to see him back in the squad. But obviously, Yang starts the game. For me, that's not on merit because he was really poor against Dundee United. Don't mind saying it about any player. Right? It doesn't mean to say we've got an agenda. Yang, I think, is lucky to be in the starting lineup. But we spoke earlier today, and we spoke about why not play Kyogo on the right? He can play there. Liam Carrigan watched Kyogo for a long time before he signed for Celtic, and he played a lot of his football on the right-hand side. And in many ways, he was adapted to a central player by Ange Postecoglou. So I would have liked to have seen that today once.
It would have been refreshing, wouldn't it? Yang's had a few chances. He's not really done it. That's what I care of. It'd have been great, Kyogo starting, say it works out, then you go to Ibrox. It's another dimension to the Celtic attack. Mm-hmm. The Rangers tackle, and Kuhn looks to have put him out of 2 games now. Obviously VAR, and it's not retrospectively been looked at because we only want to talk about one thing. But I think it'd been great to see what Kyogo could do out there. Surely it's better than what Yang's been doing for us.
Yeah.
Did you say, that wee touch between him and Ida that almost led to a goal? Well, if we had 90 minutes in them together, maybe we'd get one or 2.
Create another chance. The thing with Yang, he's starting today. You back him. I back every single Celtic player, no matter what their form is. But I do think that, going into the game again, I always say this, if you're going into the game against Rangers, if you're going into a Champions League must-win match, which Young Boys now is, and you start with a player, that player, in your starting 11, are you confident? And I think going into that Rangers game or going into Young Boys with Yang on the right, no. The answer is I'm not confident. He's not, in the last 18 months, built enough confidence in me as a fan to think that I can rely on him to create enough chances. I mean, and again, I think that Kyogo is suffering from the lack of creation around about him. I mean, what did we create for him? There was a moment, good pass by Welsh into Yang. Yang looks up, doesn't find a man. How many balls did we get in for Kyogo to attack? Not many.
I think that's the thing with Yang. I think he's got good work rate, covers the ground, but it's his final ball. And if you're a winger and you're not assisting, what's the point of you? End of the day, you're there to create. And Yang's not really done it yet. Listen, he might end up with 3 or 4 assists today, who knows? But so far, his chances, he's not really done it, has he? And
if he does, we all eat humble pie. We eat humble pie. That's the way it works. Yep. If he does that today.
Totally. But I'd love to see Kyogo start out wide right. See what the option is. You know, they might give Kyogo a bit of a break or give him kind of different chances in the box coming into the back post rather than being the main man through the middle. Let Ida kind of take that pressure and it frees up Kyogo a wee bit more. But listen, we've started with Yang. We've got to see what he can provide. So a whole different right-hand side, Tony and Yang, you know, from what we're used to.
Yeah, and we're used to a very strong right-hand side. I mentioned this earlier on, Lawrence. You know, you look at Alistair Johnston, Kuhn, and for a spell, Engels as well. Good energy down the right-hand side. And, you know, it's not as if Engels hasn't kicked the ball for months and months. You can look at the way that he linked up with Kuhn against Rangers in the cup final. Engels was massive for the third goal, putting us 3-2 up. So I do think that there's definitely an understanding on the right-hand side that we're going to miss today. And you look at Ralston, and we've spoken about his really over a 10-season period lack of game time. You know, 110 games or something he's played in that period for Celtic. And you think to yourself, right, it's up to Ralston actually. He's the experienced one here. It's up to him to really cajole Yang into, you know, creating space for Yang to play the ball into. Underlap him, overlap him, do that thing that we've seen AJ doing so well this season. Ralston needs to step up.
Listen, I think Tony's good in the overlap. I don't think his crossing's necessarily as good as AJ's. You know, he tends to just hit it hard across the 6-yard line, which there's nothing wrong with if your striker gets on the end of it. You know, or you maybe fault a second ball. So I think Tony will be giving him the option on the outside all the time. Hopefully they get a decent understanding. But look, it's Motherwell. At the end of the day, we should be looking to take 3 points. But the next 5 games, today's included, we've got 4 of them at home. You know.
Well, I will ask you at the end of this half hour, Lawrence, for your prediction. But I know that people are pointing out to some saying even a dip in the energy or in the form. Couple of draws in the mix. Yeah, we won the League Cup. I mean, I have not been that concerned. Dundee United, the performance was not anywhere near peak Celtic, but I do take into account the illness. And it wasn't just those who missed out. From what we were hearing, there were some who weren't 100% with the illness, but they were still part of the squad, Lawrence, because we needed them to be. You know, the ones that were slightly worse off were on the bench.
Yeah, it was kind of so widespread that, you know what, can you give us 60 minutes today?
Yeah. Yep.
It is what it is. Look, it's a busy period of the year for us with a lot of European games. We're not going to be top form all the way through the season. The main thing is you won the trophies that you play for, and you continue to stay top of the league. Look, is it Tannadice feels like 2 points drop, but kind of on reflection, you're going, we're still unbeaten. It's a point away from home. Terrible conditions. There's sickness throughout the squad. Missing a lot of starters. Kuhn was obviously injured in the cup final, you know, when that cynical way. It wasn't even a tackle, was it? It's just assault. He just ran up.
Yeah.
Behind him, dragged his studs down the back of his calf and Achilles.
We've got to talk about it, Lawrence, and I'll tell you why. Because we're in a world now where you could take. I can only look at Acsom. I don't look at other alternative figures in terms of what the views are, etc. But what I do know is that Acsom has got the kind of coverage that mainstream, broadcasters often have. If you want to have a look at our YouTube channel, what we do on the live social media platforms, etc. So we've got a platform that I think you've got to call it out, because it's not going to be called out on the mainstream, right? And all they focused on for the entirety of the time it's taken for us to lift that trophy to today on Boxing Day, all they're focused on is that one decision that went for Scales, obviously according to Willie Collum after the game, right? And they have fed that angle and that narrative to the point where Rangers always feel, I think, they feel emboldened by it, and they release a statement talking about the credibility of Scottish football. But I think it's down to platforms like a Celtic State of Mind. It's down to guys like us to say, well, okay, that is a talking point from the game. It's not the only one that VAR missed. What about this injury to Kuhn, the most effective footballer, if you want to look at goals and assists in Scottish football this season, who's actually been forced out through what could have been a serious injury? I mean, he felt a twinge in his knee, Lawrence. I mean, these are the types of injuries that sometimes you end up having to go and get sorted with surgery. So we've got to focus on it. We've got to keep highlighting it. We can't just go with this narrative that the mainstream are trying to set.
But I think it's a narrative that kind of Safeco try and set themselves. They've done it when that glorious day in the sun at Hampden when Hibs lifted the cup. Oh, every member of the Rangers playing staff was attacked on the park. You know, that was just the initial story, initial headlines. And then when it's reviewed, well, that's not true. Just simply not true. You know, that's coming from official Rangers channels. Why they weren't charged with bringing the game into disrepute? You know, that they've simply made up lies to distract from the fact that, you know, Hibs have eventually won the cup against them. But any time they lose a big game, it's always something, isn't it? There's always a narrative, as Brendan would say. Always a narrative. And they like to get in and try and control it. Listen, I think it was more outside the box anyway. So I'm not too sure what Wally Collin was talking about.
What I found interesting, Lawrence, is I split it into two offences in the same movement. The first one being a foul by Scales, the second one being the jersey pull. And I find it interesting that Brendan said that twice now. He said twice that they all felt, I'm talking obviously the backroom team who are watching it in live time, there was a foul by Scales, and that's what the referee gave. And then obviously the second foul was the jersey pull. But hey ho, that, you know what I mean? It's one decision in a game of football where there were numerous decisions that actually went against Celtic or not for Celtic.
What about Vickers getting pulled back by Dessers? Yeah, he's trying to get back to clear a ball off the line.
And the chances are he would, because that's
that was definitely in the box.
Yeah.
You know, that was definitely in the box. So you're kind of going, come on, VAR. You know. But the media don't want to focus on it. I don't know whether... I know they pay Rangers to attend the press conferences, don't they? I don't know
25k.
If they just say to Rangers, what are we writing today? Give us a story. It seems like back to the old days at David Marino. What are we writing about today? Will we actually do a bit of bias here and review of our team? Nah, we'll just concentrate on one thing they missed.
More fool them, Lawrence, because what will happen is, right, the biggest ally to Rangers throughout the last, let's say, 13 years, right? The period of time that led up to administration, then liquidation, and then the Phoenix Club. The biggest ally to Rangers have been the SFA. But now, Rangers, as a fan base and as a club, will turn on that organisation at the flip of a coin. So if the mainstream media think that we need to back this football club or we're going to lose readership, listen, you'll lose readership anyway the minute you print something they disagree with. So, you know what I mean? Let's be balanced and let's be brave.
Listen, I think perhaps the SFA, you know, Turnbull Hutton, God rest him, he was the first guy to kind of stand up against parachuting Rangers in, wasn't he? And said,
Wraith Rovers, yeah,
it's not happening. Since then, you know, you've had Paul McBride, you've had DeMarco going toe-to-toe with him for Celtic and saying, actually, this isn't happening. You know, and apparently Nicholson's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes and putting a bit of pressure on, saying, look, you may be used to run it for one club, but you're not doing the same with this new club. So I think that's what it is, mate. They don't like not getting their own way. But the thing is, you know, we've been beaten. We're pretty easily beaten by Celtic. Never actually winning again. What's the story going to be? There was one VAR decision that was wrong. Well, no, there was multiple VAR decisions that was wrong, but you're just going to focus on that. Let them focus on that, because unless they start improving their football, they're never going to win.
Corruption and cheating. I can't believe that these words have entered the lexicon of the Rangers support. I mean, corruption and cheating. It's incredible how this has gone full circle, Lawrence. It really has. But let's get our focus back on today's lineup and today's game. There's a lot of good comments coming in. Where's Kyogo? Kyogo is sitting on the bench today, Mr. Whip. He is sitting on the bench, kicking his heels whilst Ida starts today. And like Lawrence, I think that Ida has looked really sharp, actually, in his performances in recent times. So I'll be looking forward to seeing how he fares today against Motherwell. A team, of course, that he made a huge difference against last season when we beat them at Fir Park, came on, scored a brace. Joe Hamilton, come on, you boys in green. I hope you've had a good Christmas, Joe, and you are with your loved ones enjoying today's game and today's stream. The Montrose comes in to say, my wife thought I pulled a hernia with the groin eyelet out after seeing Yang on a team sheet. Come on, back the boy. Yeah, I would have played Kyogo on the right, but there you go. There must be a real attitude with regards to Yang, because if he wasn't showing the right application day in, day out, Lawrence, and I don't just mean being good around the dressing room. I mean, he must be showing the right attitude.
He's got to be putting
Rodgers to keep. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I've heard that's, you know, part of Rocky's down, Phil. He's not shown that attitude in training at the moment.
That's why he's played 9
he's
minutes.
Now, but he's not shown the attitude that would lead to him getting starting in the first team. I think you can see it from Yang on the park. He's got a great work rate. Just his end product, they were a bit frustrated at. But listen, maybe he's great in training like that. Maybe it's just Brendan's persevering with him and thinking, look, it'll come. You just need to be a bit more relaxed during the game. Get your head up and pick someone out. He'd have cut back to Kyogo and he didn't see it. He just flashed across the 6-yard box, and you're like, oh, Kyogo's let that defender run off him. He's made the space. Find him. So hopefully it happens for Yang, because anyone that works that hard deserves a bit of luck.
The big thing for me as well, though, right? See, if we rewind 12 months, it's the period of the year of reflection, Lawrence. We look back. If we rewind 12 months, Mikey Johnston was in and around the team. Yet, when the time came in January, we sold him. I think that Yang's playing because he's all we've got at the moment. Kuhn's not 100% fit, which is why he's on the bench. Palmer, I trust him less than Yang. And I don't think, going back to your point on Nawrocki, I don't think Palmer's showing the same application that Yang is, which is why he's not getting picked. Yep. But that's an interesting point you make about Nawrocki. Stephen Welsh comes into the team last week. I thought he played really well. I did. I think he was one of the plus points from the game against Dundee United.
Yeah, I thought Stephen had done well, but for his career, I think it's probably time for him to move on, isn't it? And 6 years in and around the first team, has he even made 12 games a season? It's just a shame for him, You'd like a homegrown player to make it, but it just doesn't look like it's going to cut it. So I think it's probably better to develop his career, to move on. And then it frees up a space. Hopefully Dane Murray comes back from Queen's Park.
Yeah.
And it builds on what we saw him at Celtic under Ange. So,
what Rodgers is, I say this obviously with the knowledge that a big part of it's on the player, but what Rodgers has done with Scalesy, he's come in and Scales was probably level pecking with Welsh at that point in terms of the scale. And he's come in and he really has shown that he can improve, he can progress, and he can develop. When I look at Welsh, and I was watching him the other day, and I'm thinking to myself, he can pass. I mean, he's got a good range of passing. He was
definitely
creating good chances. He was never under pressure insofar as his positional play was that good, that he always seemed quite relaxed on the ball, quite happy to have the ball. What is it about him that needs to improve, do you think? If he was to stay at Celtic, what are the attributes that you're looking at there, Lawrence? What does he lack? I know he's only played, 68 games in 6 seasons, right?
So a lot of that
he lacks something, right?
A lot of that's down to fitness and just players in front of him being better. Saying, at Scales, Brendan's developed them. He has, but I think Liam got, another few £100,000 who'd been away to Aberdeen. We had a bit of defensive crisis and Liam stepped forward. And he's made the jersey his own. He's staying there through work rate and determination. And he is getting better. You can see, I think his passing's better. He's better under pressure now. And whether that's just he's getting more used to it. Maybe there's a bit more quality around about him as well helps. But I suppose you need a bit of luck in football. I don't know if Stephen Welsh would get 5 or 6 games run. What kind of illness or suspensions would we need to get through if he was to get a 5 or 6 game start in the back line? Can't see it happening for him.
No, because he comes in and he plays well against Dundee United and he's back on the bench. So that this is kind of where I'm going. What does he need to do? Well, I don't think that he has the qualities, but I do think he's going to go away and have a great career. I say great, he's going to have a decent career somewhere else, Lawrence.
Listen, look at the teams that have been interesting. I think Alan Morrison put up a thing with stats once, and he's passing great, wins tackles, etc. But unfortunately, it's just not working out for him. And I think he's just going to be one of the players that needs to go away.
And
get proper game time. Get 30, 40 games a season.
Yeah, could be in France,
Italy,
Belgium. Yeah.
He really needs game. He needs games. He needs minutes. And for us, if he stays, is he just blocking Dane Murray? How do we get Dane to come through then?
Exactly, and he is looking good. A wee reminder to everybody, the lineup today is Schmeichel, Ralston, Carter, Vickers, Scales and Taylor, McGregor, Engels and Bernardo, Yang, Maida and Ida. On the bench, Sinisalo, Trusty, Palmer, Kyogo, Kuhn, Baye, McKeown, Hatate and Welsh, who we've just been speaking about. I need a wee prediction from you today. Lawrence, how do you think it will go?
I think it's going to be fairly easy. I think 1-0 half-time, 4-0 full-time.
Okay, I would take that. Donny Tiny Hands just wants a bag of cans and Kuhn starting at right wing. I get it. All I want for Christmas. George Nicholson, creativity can be a problem today. I think McCowan should have started. He's probably dropped because he gave a ball away too often, which Brendan Rodgers, it's one of his pet hates, isn't it? And Jungle Lion hopes that I'm on double time today. Well, JL, after today, I'll go and see the folks and I might get the feet up. But thank you all for getting involved. We'll be here at halftime as always, me and Lawrence. Go and enjoy the first half. And thank you for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.